Welcome to Quiz Time. I'm your quiz master, Sean, and I've got 100 questions for you from the 1930s all the way through the 1970s. So, let's see what we know, what we remember. Let's have a lot of fun while doing it too, shall we? Quizzes are fun. How many U.S. soldiers died during the pilot training for World War II due to pilot error or mechanical failure? 5,000, 15,000, or 25,000. That's a lot of soldiers. And the number is 15,000. What did Clyde Tombaugh discover on February 18th, 1930? Pluto, xerography, or neoprene? Let's see. He discovered Pluto. In 1930, what law was implemented that led to America's trading partners to retaliate, worsening the Great Depression's effects? The Neutrality Acts, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff, or the Reciprocal Trade Agreements Act? And that would be the Hawley-Smoot Tariff. Broadcast in 1973, what is considered as American TV's first miniseries? QB7, The Blue Knight, or For Whom the Bell Tolls? And that would be The Blue Knight. Which country had a Syrian brown bear that served in the military from 1943 to 1945? The Soviet Union, Poland, or Germany? And let's see, that country would be the Poland. Which of the following won the Tony Award for Best Musical in 1961? Do Re Mi, Fiorello, or Bye Bye Birdie? And that honor went to Bye Bye Birdie. The Star-Spangled Banner was adopted as the official national anthem of the U.S. in 1931. Who wrote its lyrics? Francis Scott Key, John Stafford Smith, or William Beanes? And that was Francis Scott Key. What network of caves was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1979? Lascaux, Atapuerca, or Blue Grotto? And that was Lascaux. What case of legal injustice did Allen Ginsberg reference in his 1956 poem, America? The Martinsville 7, the Central Park 5, or the Scottsboro Boys Trial? And he referenced the Scottsboro Boys Trial. When German commander Heinrich Himmler failed his duty to stress, where did he go to rest after being replaced by Adolf Hitler? Did he go to the hospital, a spa, or a ski resort? He went to the spa. What women's clothing was named after a coral reef in the Marshall Islands, where the first post-war atomic bomb tests were done? And that women's clothing was the bikini, because the bomb went off at Bikini Atoll. Who is the only U.S. president to have served more than 2 terms? Franklin D. Roosevelt, Dwight D. Eisenhower, or Harry S. Truman? The only U.S. president to serve more than 2 terms was Franklin D. Roosevelt. What British-made Draguier chocolate confectionery inspired the introduction of M&Ms in 1941? Swizzles, Calisson, or Smarties? M&Ms were inspired by Smarties. In 1931, what false flag event did Seishiro Itagaki and Kanji Ishiwara devised to push Japan into invading Manchuria? The Wans-Poshan incident, the Mukden incident, or the Huangguten incident? It was the Mukden incident. How many Jews were murdered by the Nazi Germany's forces on 29 and 30 September 1941 in Babi Yar? 13,771, 33,771, or 53,771? They murdered 3,771 Jewish people. Designed in the early 1940s, what utility truck was the first prototype of the iconic Jeep? The Willys MB, the Volkswagen Kubelwagen, or the Gaz 2975 Tiger? And that was the Willys MB. What was the first ballpark pen to be manufactured and sold in the U.S.? Reynolds, Bic, or Parker? The first ballpoint pen to be manufactured in the U.S. was the Reynolds. Who reigned as the Emperor of Japan during the Showa era from 1926 to 1989? Emperor Yoshihito, Emperor Akihito, or Emperor Hirohito? And that was Emperor Hirohito. What Soviet Union regiment of female pilots did nighttime bombing raids undetected by cutting their engines before reaching the targets? Night Reapers, Night Assassins, or Night Witches? And those were the Night Witches. What was Franklin D. Roosevelt's position before winning the 1932 presidential election? Was he governor of New York, governor of Oklahoma, or governor of Maryland? Franklin D. Roosevelt was the governor of New York. What was the name of the group of 43,000 demonstrators demanding early bonus payments in 1932 in the U.S.? The Bonus Army, the Veteran Army, or the Veteran Bonus Army? And the name of that group was the Bonus Army. What color was the iconic bikini that Ursula Andress was wearing in the 1962 James Bond film Dr. No? Black, white, or red? And she was wearing a white bikini. What kind of animal bomb did the British Special Operations Executive develop in 1941 against Germany? Explosive rats, explosive bats, or explosive pigeons? That's just cruel. They developed explosive rats. Who wrote the highly successful book, The Common Sense Book of Baby and Child Care, which was published in 1946? Dr. James Spock, Dr. Richard Spock, or Dr. Benjamin Spock? That was written by Dr. Benjamin Spock. In the Bataan Death March, how many American and Filipino prisoners of war were forced to march 63 miles by the Japanese? 25,000, 50,000, or 75,000? Well, they forced 75,000 to march. Which peace activist and philosopher was assassinated in 1948? And that activist was Mahatma Gandhi. What short story is the hit holiday movie It's a Wonderful Life based on? A Christmas Carol, The Greatest Gift, or A Visit from St. Nicholas? And that short story is The Greatest Gift. After a 13-year ban, Franklin D. Roosevelt finally legalized the sale of beer with how much alcohol concentration? 3.2%, 4.2%, or 5.2%? 3.2%. True or false? Myanmar proclaimed independence on 14 May 1948. Is that true or is that false? And that is false. It was the State of Israel who proclaimed independence on 14 May 1948. What kind of attack on the German Parliament building in 1933 paved the way for the establishment of Nazi Germany? Vandalism, bombing, or arson? And it was an arson attack. Having opened in 1946, what is the oldest continuously running resort on the Las Vegas Strip? The Sahara Hotel and Casino, the Flamingo Hotel, or the Tropicana Las Vegas? And that would be the Flamingo Hotel. The Americans and Germans have fought side by side only 2 times. One was Operation Cowboy, and the other was the Huk-Balahap Rebellion, the Battle of Castle Itter, or the Corfu Channel Incident? And that would be the Battle of Castle Itter. In 1934, Mao Zedong led a 65,000-person First Army in a 9,000-kilometer march. How many survived the long march? 3,000 people, 8,000 people, or 15,000 people? Less than 8,000 people. How many times did the Lucky Lady 2 refuel in the air during the first nonstop flight around the world in 1949? 4 times, 8 times, or 12 times? The Lucky Lady 2 went 4 times. What title did Adolf Hitler use as the absolute authority in Germany from 1933 to 1945? Chancellor, Führer, or König? He used the title Führer. Introduced by CBS in 1951, what was the first color TV program that was regularly scheduled? Premiere, Modern Homemakers, or The World Is Yours? And that show was The World Is Yours. The Social Security Act of 1935 was signed into law by Franklin D. Roosevelt as part of his program, which was named the Fair Deal, the New Deal, or the Square Deal. And his program was called the New Deal. How were the inhabitants of South Africa classified as required by the Population Registration Act of 1950? By region, by indigenous group, or by race? And they did it by race. What country did Italy wage war on from October 1935 to May 1936? Ethiopia, Albania, or Somalia? They waged war on Ethiopia. What was the cause of Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin's death in 1953? Was he assassinated? Did he have a stroke? Or was it suicide by poison? Joseph Stalin died by cerebral hemorrhage. He had a stroke. True or false? Japan used 9,000 high-altitude balloons to burn U.S. forests for days during the war. Is that true, or is that false? Well, that's false. The balloons didn't work because the forests where they landed were too damp. Well, they tried. How many credited movies was James Dean able to make before his death in 1955? Did he make 3 movies, 5 movies, or did he make 8 movies? James Dean was able to make just 3 movies. What 1935 federal law did the Energy Policy Act of 2005 repeal? The Public Utility Holding Company Act, the Federal Powers Act, or the Energy Policy and Conservation Act? It was the Public Utility Company Act. What did Dr. C. Hunter Sheldon propose in the early 1950s that would prevent head injuries from car accidents? Padded dashboards, airbags, or retractable seat belts? He invented retractable seat belts. What British campaign during the 1940s encouraged people to make their existing clothes last longer? Patch and mend, make do and mend, or darn, sew and mend? It was called make do and mend. What did Robert Adler call the first remote control he developed that used sound waves for signal transmission? The Zigbee, the Flashmatic, or Space Commander? Oh, let's see, he called that the Space Commander. According to U.S. Ambassador Claude Bowers, what war was World War II's dress rehearsal? The Great Purge, the Siege of Madrid, or the Spanish Civil War? And that was the Spanish Civil War. In 1956, which country nationalized the critical waterway Suez Canal, which led to the Suez Crisis? Egypt, Israel, or France? And that was Egypt. What Native American language did the U.S. use as a code for top secret messages that the Japanese couldn't break? Sioux, Western Apache, or Navajo? And they used Navajo. What's the pen name of children's book author and illustrator Theodore Geisel? A. Milne, Judy Blume, or Dr. Seuss? Theodore Geisel's pen name is Dr. Seuss. Which socialite did King Edward VIII want to marry, eventually leading to his abdication in 1936? Was it Grace Kelly? Was it Rita Hayworth? Or was it Wallace Simpson? He gave it all up for Wallace Simpson. Who won the 1958 Nobel Prize for Literature, but was forced by the Soviet government to reject it? Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Yaroslav Seifert, or Boris Pasternak? That was Boris Pasternak. What British World War II plan consisted of using wood pulp and ice to create an aircraft carrier to counter German U-boats? Project Habakkuk, Project Babylon, or Project Fallujah? That was Project Habakkuk. Who became the youngest chess grandmaster in 1958? Bobby Fischer, Boris Spassky, or Judith Polgar? And that was Bobby Fischer. Who formulated the formation of the Rome-Berlin axis in 1936? Ulrich von Hassel, Galeazzo Ciano, or Konstantin von Neurath? And that would be Galeazzo Ciano. Gerald Herbert Holtom's design for the nuclear disarmament logo in 1958 later became what? The V hand signal, the triquetra, or the peace symbol? And that would be the peace symbol. Dubbed as the Asian Holocaust, what 8-year war resulted in an estimated 15 to 20 million casualties? China's civil wars, the Second Sino-Japanese War, or the Vietnam War? And that would be the Second Sino-Japanese War. How long did it take to construct the Golden Gate Bridge? 4 years, 5 years, or 8 years? It took 4 years to build the Golden Gate Bridge. What nickname did female Soviet sniper Lyudmila Pavlichenko have due to a record of 309 confirmed kills? The White Death, Lady Death, or the Silent Death? They called her Lady Death. Which of the following books by Amelia Earhart is a memoir of her experiences flying? 20 Hours and 40 Minutes, The Fun of It, or The Last Flight? The title of her book was The Fun of It. In 1938, which former NYSE president was found guilty of embezzlement? Edward H. Simmons, Charles R. Gay, or Richard Whitney? And that would be Richard Whitney. What was the U.S. Army's World War II Tactical Deception Unit, which accomplished more than 20 deception campaigns? The Spectre Army, the Invisible Army, or the Ghost Army? And that would be the Ghost Army. Which novel was adapted by the radio series The Mercury Theater on the air for its 1938 Halloween episode? The Lost World, The War of the Worlds, or The Purple Cloud? And that was The War of the Worlds. What was the organized anti-Jewish violence that occurred on the night of November 9 and 10, 1938 called? The Night of Broken Glass, Operation Reinhard, or the Massacre of Kristallnacht? That was the Night of Broken Glass. In Operation Cornflakes, what did the British operation send German civilians to lower morale? Fake letters, heads of fallen soldiers, or disgusting food? They sent fake letters. How much was the minimum hourly wage that was established by the Fair Labor Standards Act in 1938? 25 cents an hour, 57 cents an hour, or 99 cents per hour? It was 25 cents per hour, and not a penny less. What physics concept did German chemists Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann discover in December 1938? Centripetal force, nuclear fission, or torque? And they discovered nuclear fission. How did Britain prevent casualties and destruction caused by nighttime bombings during World War II? With a curfew, with an evacuation, or with a blackout? And they used a blackout. Which of the following toys isn't from the 1960s? The Easy Bake Oven, Barbie, or the Whizzer? Not from the 1960s was Barbie, just much earlier. For which 1939 movie did Universal Pictures get sued for copyright infringement by author James M. Cain? The Sun Never Sets, When Tomorrow Comes, or The Last Warning? And that would be When Tomorrow Comes. What legendary musical opened on Broadway in 1959 and closed in 1963 after 1,443 performances? A Chorus Line, My Fair Lady, or The Sound of Music? It was The Sound of Music. What law did Charlie Chaplin violate that led to his arrest in 1944? The Mann Act, the Chamberlain-Cahn Act, or the Controlled Substances Act? Charlie Chaplin violated the Mann Act. What country moved its capital to a more central location in 1960? Brazil, Myanmar, or Tanzania? And that country was Brazil. In 1947, the Hollywood 10 was charged with contempt of Congress after refusing to answer questions about what? Copyright infringements, communist affiliations, or human trafficking? And that would be communist affiliations. Which of the following superheroes did Marvel Comics introduce in 1941? Human Torch, Black Widow, or Captain America? Well, they introduced Captain America. How many years did it take to complete the Mount Rushmore National Memorial? 12 years, 14 years, or 16 years? Completion of Mount Rushmore took 14 years. When was the Scotch brand cellulose tape invented? 1930, 1940, or 1950? Scotch tape was invented in 1930. What children's TV program aired its last episode in 1960 after running for 13 years? Howdy Doody, Captain Kangaroo, or Ding Dong School? And that would be Howdy Doody. What did the marking CC41 mean when it came to the utility fabrics and clothes during the early 1940s in Britain? Civilian clothing 1941, comfort couture in 1941, or consumer clothes 1941? That represented civilian clothing 1941. What was the world's tallest building from its construction in 1931 until 1971? The Petronas Twin Towers, the Sears Tower, or the Empire State Building? And that was the Sears Tower. True or false? Sam Walton opened the first Walmart store in 1962 in Arkansas. Is that true or is that false? That is true. What was the Hoover Dam's name during President Franklin D. Roosevelt's administration? The Oroville Dam, the Boulder Dam, or the Roosevelt Dam? And that was called the Boulder Dam. What 1977 American TV miniseries that was based on Alex Haley's novel earned 36 Emmy nominations and 9 wins? Roots, The National Dream, or Rich Man, Poor Man? And that would be Roots. What 1962 Rachel Carson book documented the harmful environmental effects of the indiscriminate use of pesticides by WW2 soldiers? The Sense of Wonder, Lost Woods, or Silent Spring? And that would be Silent Spring. In 1963, 2.61 million pounds was stolen from a Royal Mail train. How much is its calculated present-day value? 73 million, 58 million, or 61 million dollars? $73 million. What 1963 book by Betty Friedan was said to have sparked the second wave of feminism in the US? The Feminine Mystique, The Bloody Chamber, or Herland? And that book would be The Feminine Mystique. How many rounds did it take Muhammad Ali to beat Sonny Liston to become the heavyweight champion of the world? 8 rounds, 4 rounds, or 6 rounds? It took Muhammad Ali all of 6 rounds to beat Sonny Liston. How long did it take for the electricity to return in the 1965 Northeast blackout, which affected 30 million people in the US? 10 hours, 13 hours, or 16 hours? It took 13 hours for electricity to be restored. What was the Marxist-Leninist political organization that was founded in 1966 by Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton? The Black Panther Party, the Black Eagle Party, or the Black Wolf Party? And that was the Black Panther Party. What is Joseph Stalin's relationship with Svetlana Alliluyeva, who defected to the US in 1967? His mother, his wife, or his daughter? That was Joseph Stalin's daughter. What novel about the Battle of Gettysburg won the 1975 Pulitzer Prize for fiction? A Fire in the Wilderness, Stars in Their Courses, or The Killer Angels? And that was The Killer Angels. Which country did the US sign a hotline agreement with in 1963? Was it China, the Soviet Union, or was it Germany? And that was the Soviet Union. With President Lyndon B. Johnson's nomination, who became the U.S. Supreme Court's first African-American justice? Was it Clarence Thomas? Was it Thurgood Marshall? Or was it Charles Evans Whitaker? It was Thurgood Marshall. Which Australian Prime Minister went missing while swimming in Savoy Bay in 1967? Harold Holt, Robert Menzies, or Ben Chifley? That would be Harold Holt. What element was discovered in 1974 by bombarding California with oxygen atoms? Seaborgium, astatine, or Meitnerium? And that would be Seaborgium. Which team did the Green Bay Packers defeat in the first ever Super Bowl in 1967? The Kansas City Chiefs, the Oakland Raiders, or the New York Jets? And that would be the Kansas City Chiefs. Who won the Album of the Year in the first annual Grammy Awards in 1959? Ella Fitzgerald, Frank Sinatra, or Henry Mancini? Album of the Year in the first one was Henry Mancini. Which Nobel Prize winner wrote about the Wang family saga in the 1930s? Roger Martin Dugard, Pearl Buck, or Eugene O'Neill? And that would be Pearl Buck. Which country received the most medals at the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin? And the country with the most medals was Germany. And now question 100. Which pope had the second longest reign, leading the Roman Catholic Church for more than 26 years? St. Paul VI, St. Paul II, or the Venerable Pius XII, the venerated pope? St. John Paul II. Thanks for playing Quiz Time. Don't forget to leave your score in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any more quiz times when they come out. Quiz time's fun. We'll catch you in the next one.